All right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Enclosed Cosmology Fellowship. This week, we are going to be talking about Moses. So we're going to be, we are skipping a little bit, a good chunk of Genesis. But that's mostly because, I want to move on one. Two, there are some specific things in there like Joseph, Nebuchadnezzar, things like that when it comes to dreams specifically that I want to do a separate video on. So I don't want to cover those and then recover those. But yeah, anyways, we'll be talking about Moses getting into Exodus 1 and kind of setting up this kind of part of Scripture. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. I see a few people in chat. Thanks for being here. I got JJ Hemp Creek Bear, Joy, Marsha's here with me as well. Thanks for joining me, girl. I'll get to you just in a second. We also got Eager Television, my lovely wife, the Mrs. Vader, or the Mrs. Vader Bear. So anyways, how you doing, Marsha? Thanks for being with us and joining with us. How's your Shabbat been treating you? Nice. I ended up spending some time outside with my sons, so it was nice. We're nice and sunny here, and oh, they totally didn't even hear you. Let me try that one more time, Marcia. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and my Shabbat has been, like I said, um, just very restful. In fact, I've been tired, and so it was nice that it was a Shabbat day that I could just go take a nap.
Nice. Yeah, naps are always nice. But I don't typically dream when I nap. I when I nap, I literally like even if it's like 3 hours, it feels like it was 5 minutes. So naps do nothing for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So and then I
That's
just feel like
interesting.
time's wasted.
Time's wasted.
Yeah.
Yeah, true,
Um,
true.
but I guess on a Shabbat it really doesn't matter, because we're just resting. So, but
Yeah.
anyways, so yeah, we may have like Daryl Lee sometimes comes late, so maybe he'll be here. I'm not sure. I haven't heard from him. But before we get into the main topic, I did want to talk a little bit about Anthony. For those that aren't in the Discord, check that out in the description if you'd like to join. Um, didn't see those updates. So we did get him a lawyer, and he is starting that process. He's trying to find, as of right now, he's working on obviously figuring out the court date, but also trying to find Anthony's possessions. So, because he is missing keys to his house, his vehicle, he's also missing a good amount of money as well as some knives and other personal effects. So that's what they're looking into. I did unfortunately miss a call from him today because he normally calls me around lunch his time, but he called me around 5 my time, and I wasn't at my phone. So that sucked, but hopefully I'll hear from him tomorrow. I tried to call his lawyer, but I didn't get a hold of him. So I don't have really much more of an update other than that. Hopefully soon we'll get information on not only his personal belongings, but also his
What?
court date.
Yeah, a court date, and I didn't tell them anything.
Yeah. So as of last Friday, like last Friday, so yesterday, he's been now in there for since Friday the 18th, so 3 weeks now without any information given to him of a court date or anything.
I'm shocked. That's all I can say.
Yeah,
Is I'm
isn't
shocked.
that insane? It's so insane. And it's weird because at first they were giving us information like readily, and then all of a sudden they started saying, well, we can't give you that, and blah, blah, blah. He's been moved, wasn't moved. He had a court date,
Oh,
didn't have a court date. Like, all these shenanigans. So it's really weird, but at least he has a lawyer looking into it now, so um, there's that. But I don't want
well,
to.
that's
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time there. I also want to shout out some of the people over on Take of the World. Joy's over there too. Thank you. We also got Andrew Michael Denny, Arc Builder CCMC. That's Christian conceptualism in modern Christianity. Very interesting thing. Go check out that video. We did a recent special guest interview with him, and yeah, it was pretty awesome. All the information he was giving out and looking at perspective. And of course, we all have different pieces of the puzzle. We don't all have to agree on the exact same thing to still consider each other brothers and sisters and truth seekers, looking to find, those puzzle pieces, to find that insight that the Father has our hearts after. So appreciate that for y'all here. We also have Victoria Hollenrake. Thank you as well, my dear sister. So anyways, and it looks like FEAR showed up as well. So thank you for being here, brother. Anyone, again, wants to hop in and talk to us, or join us around the table, feel free to pull up a chair, and yeah, thanks a million. So anyways, so yeah, let's kind of get into it. We're gonna start off obviously in Exodus 1:1. We're gonna read through a few chapters pretty briefly, and then kind of get into some conversation. So there's only two of us, so the conversation will go pretty quickly. But maybe we can get into more chapters because of that. So anyways, let's go ahead and pull that up. So pull this. Boom. All right, so now on screen, everyone should be seeing Exodus 1:1. Again, for those new, I use King James Version. Everything's rabbled. I use multiple translations. Look up, stuff in the Strong's Concordance. Use all the things. I personally like this one for the literary style and like reading it, so that's what I'm going to do. But anyways, yeah, let's get into it. So Exodus 1. Now, these are the names of the children of Israel who came into Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob. Reuben, Simon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. Excuse me. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Therefore they did not set over them Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor. And they made their lives bitter and hard bondage, in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. All the service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, When ye do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared God, and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men and children alive. The king of Egypt called for the midwives, and said unto them, Why have ye not done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively and are delivered ere the midwives come unto them. Therefore God dwelt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mightily. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born ye cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive. So before I go on to 2:2, when I had read this before, this waxed exceedingly. I really wanted to know kind of what that was talking about, and and you know at first I had a little confusion, but once I read the rest of it, that confusion went away. But what that was and became exceedingly strong. And when I looked at that strong, like it means to be vast or numerous, and that all made sense. But it also kind of had this to shut the eyes, to close the eyes, to shut the eyes, to shut eyes. So I was almost thinking this, oh, like, okay, they're starting to get wicked. That's what this strong is. But then, like I had read back here with the midwives. So once the midwives, didn't hearken unto Pharaoh and feared Yah, they because of that, not only were they blessed, but also again the people multiplied and waxed very mightily. That same thing, they became strong again. So I think that's really interesting how we see that, just this simple things as these women of Israel, and I'm sure many of the sisters here who will watch this are very much like this. In no way, shape, or form, if the powers that be came to them or like, hey, do this thing, would say, yeah, absolutely. But we can kind of look at our society as of it is right now and see very much more so that there are a lot of people that the Pharaoh is coming to them and saying, hey, do this thing, get rid of this thing. And they're hearkening unto that voice. So I know that's kind of going a little dark, but it's kind of dark, like what the Pharaoh is asking them.
Well, it is, and I think a lot of times people are always questioning, you know, aren't you supposed to do what you're told? You're supposed to follow rules, not if it goes against God's rules. And they feared God more, and it's so cool that they even blessed the midwives and gave them homes or something. Didn't
Mm-hmm.
that say that?
And
I mean,
and that he made them houses. It's almost not
yeah.
even. It's not even just like God just made them physical houses. He's almost saying like kind of like Abraham's house. Like he made them. He
Oh,
made them like, important in the kind of in the background. You know what I mean?
yeah, I just thought it was awesome, and they actually went before Pharaoh and says, "Oh, they just go so much quicker." No, they feared God. That's why they didn't, and they lied, right?
Well,
So
no. Well,
they lied to
no,
Pharaoh.
no, they didn't lie. They literally said in 19, it says, "And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are
Right.
lively and are delivered ere the midwives come unto them." So there, she's straight up saying like, "No, we're not like our women aren't like your women."
Yeah, I think they lied,
You think
and
so?
yeah, I do, because I think they feared God more. And there's other places in the Bible where um think yeah oh
I guess you
what
could
was
kind of say they lied because they like,
they did because they feared God
well,
more.
well,
But it's not really a lie as a sin lie. You know what I mean?
Well, no, what I
Um,
mean is because, like, he said, do this thing, and they weren't like, okay, we won't do that, right? It wasn't till, like, a whole but like, it kind of seems like there's a time gap here because he talks to them he talks to both of them, and they're like, do this thing. And then it says, but the midwives feared God and did not do as the king commanded them, but saved the children alive. Meaning, the king at that point maybe thought that they were going to be doing it, right?
It says they did save. They did what? You
Yeah.
got the scripture down again.
Yeah, it says.
But anyway.
Oh, sorry. I'll bring it back up. But sorry. So it says, but the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved
Did not do. Yeah.
Yeah, but saved the men children alive.
Right. Right. There you go. They did not do what Pharaoh asked and saved them.
Yeah.
So, but they told Pharaoh, "Oh, they just came too early." Then that means they didn't even have a part in saving them. So I think they did lie.
Well, yeah, no, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm maybe they're like, I'm just kind of thinking out this in my head. The Pharaoh's like, do this thing, and they're like, if they said no right there and there on the spot, there'd have been consequences. So maybe they're like, yeah, okay, we'll do this thing. But then they actually thought about it and they're like, no way, who's Pharaoh compared to God? So they saved the children alive. And so they had been doing that. And then the Pharaoh comes back here in 19, and the midwives said unto 18, and the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said unto them, why have you not done this thing and and saved them? And they're like, well, hey, because we're not like you. So I think that's very interesting because this time, like when he comes and said, hey, why did you not do this thing I told you to do? And and they're like, well, because we're not like you. It's just kind of funny, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it was a good way of saying it, but I think it was an untruth. But it was because God. Anyway, welcome, Oscar.
Oh, what's up, brother? Everybody, welcome, Oscar. It's 136 Light to the show. How you doing this evening? Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
What do you think about that? Do you think they lied or not?
I don't think they lie because because they told the truth to Pharaoh. Like they were like how Bader was saying, like, we are not like the Egyptian woman, like we are different. So it's like, I don't think that's a lie. That's pretty much like being honest. Like if you're for example, like if you work in a place and they offer you something, right, that is unclean, you can be like you can tell a lie to don't eat the unclean food, but you can also be like, hey, like, I don't eat this because like shrimps like clean the bottom of the ocean or whatever, right? It's not a lie. It's like,
okay, put it this way.
It's a different way of saying it.
Okay, put it this way. They did not obey Pharaoh.
I totally agree with that. And I don't like, and that's what I'm saying. They may have in the beginning, like that first part when he first came to him and it lists off their name. I talked to these two midwives. He came back to them and said, like, he literally says, let me pull that. Oh, I'm on 2. That's why I can't find it. Give me 1 second, guys, everyone. And it says, in the Egyptian, king of Egypt called for the midwives, right? So they went to him, and they said to him, why have you not done this thing? So right there, that makes me, like, kind of agree with you when you're saying they're lying, meaning they may have to agree to it. That's how they got out of the situation. But when it says here, but they feared God and did not do it. Right.
Yeah, I just think they were very clever midwives. That was a very clever thing to say.
Yeah, and we know that he thought, right, that was going to be happening, but but they were consistently saving the boys, the little boys. And so
Right.
he saw those little boys obviously at some time,
Right.
right? And I almost wonder if he was like, hey, don't cut any of the little boys' hair. Let them all grow long.
Oh,
You know what I mean? So like it wasn't till like they were men almost did
yeah.
they realize, "Oh gosh, these are
Possibly. Possibly. I
I
don't
know.
think so.
Maybe not that
Possibly. I don't
far,
think.
but just a thought."
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I don't think he's that involved with the peons, you know. But somebody, you know, the word got to him.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's also something to think about in our time. Is just why I pulled that up is, you know, we're going to be asked things by the government that goes against our principles, our morals, the way of Yah, and how you going to deal with it, you know.
I thought about that, like, and I've had a long time ago, a close friend of mine, Nate. I was talking to him, and he was like, I was like, what if they are talking about like putting a chip in something, blah blah blah, or they're gonna kill you? And he was like, well, I'd take the chip, and then I'd, like escape, and then take the chip out of me, like,
Uh,
and it's like I'm like, yeah, but how, like that's a pretty thin line between,
that is.
what I'm saying is it's a thin line because what if the mere act of doing it is like, let's say we're specifically talking about the mark as an example, right? Like we don't know what is and what isn't the mark. We can guess, we can make hypotheses, but we can't know. Excuse me, we can't know for sure. So that kind
I
of
think
go
I
ahead.
think maybe we might. I mean, I don't think I'm going to be around by then, but if so, I think we will know what that mark will be, or the people of God will know what it is. If our eyes and ears are open and we're following His ways, that we won't even have to fake it and say, "Oh, do it to me." And no, I think we'll have to stand. I think we will have to stand tall and say no.
No, totally. I'm so like I am not on the line of like, going along as far as it can. Like I like if I'm any of those things that it describes, I can't think of the scripture, but like those who are to die by the sword will die by the sword. Those who will go into
And be
captivity will
captive.
go
Yep,
into
yep,
captivity.
yep,
Like
yep.
I'm more of the rather die by the sword than go into captivity type of person. And maybe that's more even so because I have children, and so the thought of them getting a hold of my children and you know
Right,
trying to brainwash them type of thing. Um,
right.
so
And it reminds me of that one. I mean, just think of that one when you just brought up children. That one woman and her 7 sons, and they all had to be watched, each one killed, and she kept encouraging the next one and the next one to stand tall, stand firm, stand. Who was that? Well, her 7 sons and her all being killed. Where was that?
I don't know what you're talking about, but that sounds pretty
It's in
interesting.
the Bible, and I just heard it in one of the. I don't know if it was in.
The the Maccabees.
Oh, you're right. It's the Maccabees.
Oh, okay. That's I
Oh,
I Maccabees confuses me because it's part of the Talmud, and maybe I'm confusing things, but I don't know if I trust anything that's in the Talmud. But then again, they may have taken in some of the true parts, like let's say the Maccabees, and kind of absorbed it into, what it is today, um,
I'm
to kind of
not
hide
sure.
it. But I don't know. The Talmud
I'm not.
also describes, the Messiah in Sheol, in hell, burning in excrement. So, in a pot of boiling excrement. So I
Yeah,
don't know, and it's attached to it, but it's like, is it directly attached? I don't know, but
right.
we're kind of getting off topic, way from my fault. So sorry about that.
No, not really. It's mine. I brought you on to Maccabees, but anyway.
Yeah, no worries. All right, so let's go on to chapter 2 at least. Get this read really quickly. I'll pull that up for everyone. So we're on Exodus 2 now, and it says, "And there went a man of the house of Levi, and took to wife a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bare a son. And when she saw him that he was a sorry about that, had to sneeze. Saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. And when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and dabbled it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. And his sister stood afar off to wit what would be done to him. And the daughter of the Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." And she said his sister, and then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew woman, that she may nurse the child for thee?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, "Take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages." And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses. And she said, "Because I drew him out of the water." And it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren, and looked on their burdens. And he spied an Egyptian smiting an Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he took his way, and that way, and he saw that there was no man. He slew the Egyptian, and hid him in the sand. And he went out on the second day. Behold, 2 men of the Hebrews strove together. And he said to them that did the wrong, "Wherefore smitest thou thy fellow?" And he said, "Who made thee a prince and a judge over us? Indeedest thou to kill me, and thou killest the Egyptian?" And Moses feared, and said, "Surely this thing is known." When Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh, and dwelt in the land of Midian. And he sat down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water, and filled the troughs to the water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them, and watered their flock. And when they came to rule their father, he said, "How is it that ye are come so soon today?" And they said, "An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us, and watered the flock." And he said unto his daughters, "And where is he? Why is it that ye have left the man? Call him, that he may eat bread." And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses Zipporah his daughter. And she bare him a son, and he called his name Gershom, and for he said, "I have been a stranger in a strange land." And it came to pass in process of time that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage, and they cried, and their cry came up unto God by the reason of the bondage. And God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked up upon the children of Israel, and God had respect unto them.
Wow. First off, that's the first part where Moses was put on the water.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I thought he was always a baby. But she got to nurse him, and actually he grew up quite a ways. It wasn't just a weaning. she got to raise him, and then Pharaoh took him as her son. And I don't understand Pharaoh's daughter, how she got away with that, or how he was so accepted as her son.
Yeah, so I think that's really interesting too, because that kind of like before what I would have like thought, and definitely, like that's why it's so important. Like, yeah, you've read the Bible, but have you read the Bible on flat Earth? You know what I mean? But what I mean
Okay.
is, like, we have to go back and read these things, because I even in the thumbnail, just pull that up real quick. Give me a second, guys. In the thumbnail, let me pull this over.
Right. Right. I don't. What do you think, Oscar? I don't think
I think it was mostly about probably just the Hebrew children.
just the Hebrews.
Yeah,
Um,
because like also like something to take in mind, like when we were discussing about like were they lying or not. Beginning on first Exodus, it talks about how Joseph's dead, and it goes and about like how there's a new king of Egypt, a new pharaoh, which knew not Joseph. So we see that the trust that Joseph had already built with the last pharaoh was there, but this pharaoh didn't know, knew Joseph. So that's probably why they had like this pharaoh like thought that he could like tell this Hebrew woman, "Hey, go and do this horrible thing to your like own nation," because like they already developed some type of trust, but maybe he didn't knew like how the Hebrews were, and we saw that these two Hebrew women tell the Pharaoh, "Hey, not like our women are not like your woman." um, but we also see in the last chapter of Exodus 1 that after they disobey Pharaoh, Pharaoh pretty much takes it into his own hands. So I do think that because like there's like hatred built up from the side of Egypt towards the Israelites, and we can see the full picture painted in the first chapter. So yes, I think it was mostly Hebrew boys.
yeah. And what's amazing, well, maybe that's why she had him raise, I mean, you know, and then gave him to him after he was older, gave Moses to the Pharaoh's daughter after he was older, kind of got that thing out of his head about babies. I mean, he was wanting them all killed, and this was a Hebrew baby. I'm surprised she was able to have. I wonder if she lied to him, lied to her dad, to Pharaoh or whatever.
Yeah, and when I showed the thumbnail, the sound cut out. So just to kind of get people caught up, what we're talking about is I was asking them, like, here in 22 Exodus 1:22, it says that Pharaoh charged all his people. Was this just the Hebrews or the Egyptians that he was doing, and then we could kind of jump over to 2, and then we see like what's interesting about this part, right, is like she hid him 3 months, and when she could no longer hide him, that's interesting. Like, how could she hide him for 3 months? But why not? Maybe because now at this time he's talking and gooing and guying and stuff like that. So she makes them this thing and she puts him in the riverbank, and then stood off so they could see what would happen to him. And obviously, this is y'all's hand in it that Pharaoh's daughter, comes here to wash up, and the maidens find him, and that he cried. And what's interesting is this said, and when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she did hide him 3 months, right? Like when he was nice and healthy, like he could survive. It wasn't like he was born and boom, he was put out right away. So.
Right.
And then anyways, and so what you were bringing up about, this is like, and then she's, 7. So then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call a nurse? So they get a nurse of the Hebrew woman's, they pay her money, right, to be like the child's mother. And then, did
they know that it was the child's mother?
No, well, it literally says, and then she opened it, and behold, the baby wept, and she had compassion on him and said, this is one of the Hebrews' children. So, like, my original thought, like, definitely with them being Egypt's, before, like, I went back and read this, is I was thinking, like, oh, maybe they thought this was, like, a god or something. Like, that's why they would just take this random child, because it was, like, why does a baby just show up in the Nile? And we all know that Egyptians, worshipped the Nile itself, right? So if all of a sudden a baby is, maybe this is, Horus reborn or whatever. So, but obviously it squashes that because she's like, oh, this is a Hebrew's child. And then it says, shall I go and call thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? And the Pharaoh's daughter said, go to her. And go. And the maid went and called the child's mother.
That's awesome, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's
that's just so miraculous.
But so I this is what I'm kind of confused. Bear son, and she saw his good, and she hid him 3 months, and she could no longer hide. So she went and hid the child, but her sister watched to see what would happen to it. The Pharaoh's daughter maids find it. The Pharaoh's like, oh, this is a Hebrew woman. Go get her mom. The mom comes. She gets picked up. They nurse the child, give her wages. Then and then the child grew, and she brought him unto the Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. So like basically once Moses was weaned, then they like adopted him, and he got a new name, and because she drew him out of the water, not of the waters. So I don't know. Another thing that I like, because there's more to this, but I think that something interesting here is the skip. We go from him now, being, the son of the daughter of Pharaoh, and then it skips all the way to the point where he's capable, obviously, of killing a person because they're harassing, hurting his fellow people.
Right.
So don't you think that's kind of interesting that it skips? There's no more information about.
Yeah, it's a big gap.
Yeah, that's a huge gap for in 10 and 11.
And the only filler in of that gap is the movie Moses.
Yeah. It's literally all what we can just guess, right?
Right.
Which is interesting because Moses, and I think it's hidden because the Egyptians being the Egyptians, they're pretty good about keeping history.
Yeah. Now, here's another thing. Here she was, because they were killing all the males, right? She wasn't the only one that had to hide their babies. I mean, think about it.
So do you
And
you're they're hiding their babies, but it goes back to here, back to 1 that last 22, and Pharaoh charged all his people saying, every son that is born ye cast into the river, every daughter ye shall save alive, right? So my question is they we know that like in 21 that the houses of the women's, like God made them houses because of what they did, and we know that they
right.
multiplied and grew very strong because of that. And then Pharaoh does this last thing, and then we get here where Hebrews are afraid, like they have to hide their children. Why do you think in here it doesn't, in 1 again, does it not state like, and Pharaoh charged, like it's almost like he's saying, told all of his people, hey, any of their sons, you throw them into the river, any of their daughters, they're fine.
And then he also, he says to the midwives, "Why haven't you done this? What happened?" And they say, "Blah blah blah." The Hebrew women are too quick for us. Why didn't he say, "Kill them all right now"? Anyway, I mean, if you wanted them, it's just weird. I don't know. It seems like,
It,
well,
yeah,
I
like
I don't care if they did it.
why didn't Pharaoh just like, because he had, it says here, and the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said unto them. So he called for the midwives. That means, hey, he sent people saying, hey, Pharaoh wants to talk to you. They came to Pharaoh. Pharaoh was like, said these things, and they were like, we won't do this. And we know, and it says, therefore God dwelt with the midwives, and the people multiplied, and it waxed very mightily. And it came to pass, when the midwives feared God, that he made them houses. So this is kind of something I have that kind of come into my head. I know we're kind of going backwards here, but therefore God dwelt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied. And it came to
Yeah.
pass, because the midwives feared God, that he became them houses. Does I can't that statement be true and them be dead?
Huh?
So does that make sense? Like, can't that statement be true and then be dead? Like, let's say it's dead, and it can't, like, therefore God dwelt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied. And I in my mind, I can't understand how Pharaoh is coming to these people, commanding like just these women to do this thing. They come back, like he comes back, they go back to him. He says, why haven't you done this thing? And they're like, oh, because we're not like you, like our women aren't like your women, right? And so because they did that, it like he doesn't kill them, he just lets them go apparently. And
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
he,
That's what I was saying.
yeah,
It's
and
like,
he just lets them go, and then boom, all of a sudden is like, hey, because it says, and Pharaoh charged all his people. Now when it says all his people, is that the Egyptians, because that's his people, or because they're subjugated to him, is he also including the Hebrews in that? Why
I
would
think
he tell his people to do that?
I think it is just the Egyptians
But
because
why?
like he sort of like lost trust in them. Like he didn't trust them anymore. He didn't trust the Hebrews, like the Hebrew woman, to like do do what he was gonna do, because like he was gonna get the same response. So he took, in a way, he took like manners into his own hands, and he's like, okay, if you guys don't wanna do it, I'm gonna do it my way. And like he knows that his army is pretty much gonna go, what, like throw to the river all the male babies with no excuse.
that's a good one. So he saw that the midwives weren't doing it; it wasn't happening, and now he charged the Egyptians to do. Uh, yeah, very good. That's a good way of seeing it.
Hmm. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And so now, like, maybe he just outlawed, like, through this time, because it sounds like there's a gap, right? But
Yeah,
uh that through this time he could have easily just said, okay, no more Hebrew midwives, like you have to be Egyptian to be a midwife. And then he charged them saying, hey, y'all do this thing. And then sure enough, they would do it, which is kind of interesting, right? Because he's like, oh yeah, no, Hebrew women aren't the type of people that would be able to do that for you. So like, because they were true, like this is like literally an example of like a glass half empty half full type of thing. So for the Hebrew women, they were standing up and being like, you know, we're not like Egyptian women. We're about life, and you know, right? And then
Wait,
what's up, brother?
hey, so it's the Egyptian Hebrew, it's the Egyptian women that are the midwives, because they don't say we, they say the Hebrew women are too strong and they have their babies, or too fast. They have their babies before we get there.
They were Egyptian midwives. So they feared God.
Yeah, yes, because they knew they didn't want to kill babies, and you forget a lot of Egyptians left with them. Remember later on.
Yeah, later on.
The mixed multitude, no, for sure. I kind of get what you're saying. You're saying because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women. But see, it is making a distinction there. But what my point is, on Pharaoh's side, he's seeing that like as a logical problem, like a logistical problem, where he's like, oh, I've been trying to get the Hebrew women to do it. They're not like that. They're not going to do it. But what they did say is right. The Egyptian women will do it, and
Right.
so that's like maybe then a switch. You know,
What's
His own Egyptian daughter won't even do it.
oh yeah, for sure.
Well, and not only that, well, he didn't know about until the baby was weaned. But Pharaoh accepted. He must have known. I mean, he knew whether his daughter had a baby or not, and that was a Hebrew baby, and that's strange too.
Well, yeah.
Pharaoh said, "Oh, sure, you can."
Well, and this is why I think it is. So, like, kind of thought about that. Switching back over to 2, is she held the baby for 3 months, right? So if you're a parent, just like think about the difference of a child, the interaction you get from a child, like from 1 month to 3 months. There's quite a bit of difference. You know, they're looking at you, they see you, they can, so I think that because he was a goodly child and he was hidden 3 months, that made it way easier for her to have like the compassion on him, right? Because it was no longer, and I'm basing this off of the Egyptian, like the Egyptian, what we knew Egyptians would do to children, and what they were a part of when it came to children, that they saw, especially that age, way differently than they saw like a baby that was allowed to be, let's say, become 3 months.
Yeah. Well, definitely the hand of God was on him.
Oh, that for sure.
Yeah.
Something interesting about chapter 2 is that when they took Moses, they make an ark made out of boiled rushes, and the Strong's definition for boiled rushes, H 1573, it says specifically the papyrus. So it's like papyrus is like some type of paper, right? And it's kind of interesting, like that they mention like that they make an ark, and we see like the comparison between the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of Noah. Moses was on the ark. He was a Hebrew boy in an ark made out of like paper, where you pretty much write stuff. It's like the symbolism that is here is kind of amazing. I never seen this before, but I don't know. He was destined to write the Torah.
Yeah. The hand of God was definitely on him for sure, and even the mother got to got to nurse him, and then that how wonderful was that? But
But
they
I bet
didn't
it would
leave
have
a good
been.
gap.
I bet it was. I was just gonna say. I bet it was so hard on her. Like
Oh yeah,
she like had to go through what it would for a mother to even one make that basket. Like think about
right,
that, right? Like she's
right,
hiding them, so going through that, then making the basket and knowing what she's gonna do with it, and then actually doing it, and then knowing that the Pharaoh, like, because her sister watched from afar, she knew that the Pharaoh's daughter got him, right? So now she's like, oh my gosh, the Pharaoh, we know what Pharaoh's up to right now, but she has compassion. And then she sends, like, hey, go get the mother, and she pays the mother like the pain, like, so she's probably thinking I'm dead. She gets there, she's like, okay, I'm gonna pay you to nurse this child. She's like, oh my god, she's so relieved. So then
yeah,
she's nursing the child, and then she realizes, oh wait, like at a certain point, you know he's going to become the son. So that then again, the pain of, her son now, boom, going away, and him not, like, they weren't like, hey, you're still mom, come around anytime you like. You know what I mean?
right, right. I wonder though. There's such a gap of everything and so much story that we haven't. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah. I want to take a quick second. My lovely wife joined us, as well as Daryl Lee. How you doing, brother? Ho just showed up, and then Chris joined in, and also, if you want to take a second and just say hi to everyone while you're here, that'd be awesome. How you doing, Daryl? Oh, maybe he's not able to talk right now. How you doing, lovely wife?
Hello, family. Shalom. I just wanted to say, because you never read the chat, my wonderful husband, that in chapter 1 of Exodus, to what Chris was saying earlier, in verse 15, it specifically says that the midwives are Hebrew midwives.
Yeah.
And then it's Moses' sister who is the one, like it says, his sister goes and says to the Pharaoh's daughter, hey, do you want me to go get a wet nurse for this baby from among the Hebrew women? And then she goes and gets Moses' mom. So I just think that Moses' mom would have known
Yeah.
Oh,
that
she.
she wasn't going to be in danger. Like, she knew that she was walking into a specific job.
And she was able to go to the mom because it was her sister. And yeah.
Yeah, that was her daughter telling her, hey, Moses made it safely to the Pharaoh's daughter. They need a wet nurse. They've asked for me to call upon the Hebrew women. And then Moses' own mother was able to go. If that is not a situation ordained by Yah, I don't know what is.
Oh yeah, no, the finger of God, absolutely.
Yeah, so cool. Yeah, that's an interesting point. But even so, take away that but even what that mother was going through that whole ordeal, like that's insane. Like, thinking about you, my love, and you ever being at a point where you're having to do this thing with our child, like our baby boy, like that literally blows my mind. But obviously, I feel like she was doing what the father asked her to do because it worked out for her.
Right. I think somehow if we ever get into some better, more extra biblical, it would probably show that the father had given her some, and her, all the others, they still hiding their kid. This one is going to be in Pharaoh's house, and he's going to be alive, and that's got to bring some joy. What could have been so sorrowful. So, but then Moses, that big gap, I've already forgotten chapter 2, of him killing a Hebrew, and then he went off. I always thought he went, I didn't know he was still in Egypt. He went to Ethiopia, right? Ethiopia at the time of this was part of Egypt. And so he was still in Egypt, in what we call Ethiopia now. I didn't know that until
So yeah, so it says that, where is that? Bring that up. So that I just still real quick, that gap between 10 and 11, I think that's so interesting that it doesn't, like, we also see that, you know, reflected in, you know, Messiah's life, how there's a pretty big gap, like it tells them like his birth, and then his you know, his adult life. But what I think's interesting about that is kind of like what we've been showing through scripture all along, is how you have like the first priesthood, you know, being through Adam, and then that would have been going to Abel, but he was slain by Cain, but then it was passed through Seth, and then we have this, you know, line that it gives us all the way down to Noah, right? And like Light pulled up before, we have a parallel there to, you know, to Noah with an ark, you know, with this protective covering made out of wood, you know, to hold him. And he, you know, was like my wife pointed out, like Marsha pointed out, you know, the hand of God was in this whole part, but showing that he is like the next kind of candidate for the high priest. So and it's also interesting that it's like, we know this, he isn't a Messiah, he has a real father. We know nothing of, like, we know a little bit about the mother, right? Like, we know she has a sister. We know that she was at least able in a situation where she could hide a baby for 3 months, so she'd have to be in a pretty decent situation, I guess, to do that. But and then she ended up getting paid money to be the child's nurse.
that's even better.
Yeah, so
Not just the nurse though, like it says, and you could expound on this or choose not to and just take it for what it says, but she says, take this child, like take him away and nurse him, and then when he comes of a certain age, she brings him back to Pharaoh's daughter. So like, to me it almost sounds like she went away and she raised him for a time, and
Right.
then when, you know, she was ready, she brought him back. It wasn't just like the Pharaoh's daughter was raising him, and then when he needed to eat, he went to his mother. Like, it sounds like she got to raise him from a baby.
Well, and it's an interesting point because Pharaoh, like, I almost wonder about this, because I was thinking, like, okay, so one, there's a boy child and around, so you would think people would talk. So you would think that Pharaoh would know about it, but then how, like, then maybe not, because then I was thinking maybe the reason why she sent, like you just brought up, the reason why she sent the, you know, the child and the mother away, is to hide it. But then how would, like, maybe that's how it got away, but then I don't know. It's kind of interesting to think whether Pharaoh knew or not.
I don't think he knew. I don't think he
like
knew
not
then.
until he became her son. Then maybe at some point knew.
I think, yeah, he had to know.
Pharaoh?
Yeah, because this is his daughter. You don't think that his daughter would have asked permission? Yo, hey, Pharaoh, I found this baby. Like, I'm going to keep it. You can't just bring a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old, depending on, like, when you stop nursing, but that's the typical time. Sometime between 12 to 24 months, you stop nursing. You don't bring a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old back and, like, try to pass off a story.
Yeah, but that's nowadays. I think they would typically, until they were weaned. So I think that would probably, like, I know that, like, for instance, if we go back what we were just reading with Isaac, when he was born, like it was it was years after, right? Like he was like 6 or 7 years old when he was weaned, and then they had that celebration when Ishmael was, and Hagar were then sent away.
Right.
So I'm almost thinking he's like 6, 7 when his mother like gets him. When the Pharaoh's daughter gets him, I should say.
I just think like the idea of adoption is probably more realistic for this specific situation than we might realize, because I don't think anything like that could have happened under the Pharaoh's nose and him not know the truth.
But then, like, okay, then other than just saying, like the mysteries of, Yah, like, logically, why did she send the child and the mother away?
Right, she could. Why couldn't she just bring them all in and adopt him right then? Just saying, because I want him, But I think, she prepared, it's Pharaoh's daughter. She prepared the way for him, saying, please, 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 or whatever.
And where did she get the wages to pay her?
Because, like, this is kind of my thought. This is kind of my thought. Well, because she's a princess. But this is my thought, because it goes on, it says, and the child grew, and Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew and brought him. So what if, like, I don't know this is complete speculation, but what if there's something within, like, as an example, an Egyptian law, where when a child is at a certain age, let's say when they've been weaned, they are now a person, right? So then at that point, a person can't be you just can't kill them, because then that would be murder. And it's kind of like what they're kind of doing, with America, right? Because, like, we have Planned Parenthoods everywhere, and they're trying to extend that that age outside the womb, where it's not considered murder. So maybe that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with, she's kind of outwitting, because she had this compassion, because she saw this child, she was willing to go against her father's wishes of just, like, if she had no conscience, she would have been like, oh, I'm going to take this to father and let this be made an example out of, right? But she didn't. She had compassion. She not only, found the mother, was trying to get it a nurse, but found the actual mother, paid the actual mother, but then they sent the mother away and say, hide this child, like, kind of like, hey, you don't have to worry about anything, because I'm going to pay you money just to nurse the child. So that gives her a lot of leeway, because she doesn't have to go to work. She doesn't have to do any, like, she can just focus on the child.
Yeah, and have wages.
Yep, and she's not in Egypt where someone's going to stumble into her. She's with her own people, kind of hidden within plain sight.
Yeah.
And then at a certain age, let's say that age is the age of weaning, boom, now Moses is a child. She takes in that child, and then boom, he's protected, because he's now like a citizen.
Oh, never thought of it that way. Could be.
Just a thought. That's
conjecture.
That's how my logical mind thinks.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows?
Sweet. All right. Well, we keep like jumping back to that, but go ahead. Someone is.
Let's get to the murder.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. We kind of spend that time. So yeah, there's that weird jump, and then we get that jump where, we see that Moses, was older, and he saw that his brother, so I'll just read it again. And it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown that he went out unto his brethren and looked on the burdens, and he spied an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way, and he saw that there was no man. He slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. That kind of rhymes. That's weird. And he went out the second day. Behold, two of the Hebrews strove together, and he said to them that did thee wrong. Wherefore smiteth thy fellow? And he said, Who made thee a prince and a judge over us? Indeedest thou to kill me as thou killest the Egyptian? And Moses feared and said, Surely this thing is known. And when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. So I want to talk about that more, like this more, but I want to go back up here. The fact that, like, one, that Moses, like, the Pharaoh was like, oh yeah, finally I have a reason, to kill Moses. And he left, right? And another thing that's interesting is the fact that the people, right, the two men of the Hebrews strove together, and he said to him that did the wrong, wherefore smitest thou that fellow? Like, why did he kill? So his own people who he protected, to me, is seemingly from this is who they told that now that made its way to Pharaoh, right? Any thoughts on that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I'm just saying, because it's like, why?
Oh, I thought.
I'm just saying. So he went. One of his brethren was being killed. Right, was being beaten by an Egyptian. He killed that Egyptian. No one else saw it. Right. We know that he looked this way, he looked that way, and there was no man. Right? He hid the body in the sand. There was no one who saw him. Let's just say there was no one else, because he looked this way, he looked that way, and there was no one, so no one saw him in the sand. Okay? So who's the third party in this situation?
I think Moses thought no one saw him.
Exactly.
But someone did see him.
No, I don't. I think it's very like, me personally, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying my thing is his brethren, right? Because look, right? So the only other person that's there is another Hebrew that was being beaten. That's the third party.
Did they knew that Moses was a Hebrew, right?
Yeah, because in
Like,
14 it says, and he said, "Who made thee a prince and a judge over us?" And then they said, "Indeedeth thou to did you come to kill me just like you killed the Egyptian?"
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. It was a Hebrew.
Yeah.
well, he wasn't disguised as a Hebrew because he grew
Yeah.
up in the palace or whatever that was, right? He
Right.
was like, he had some type of power, so like that's why, like, he had some type of authority. He was probably covering like pagan Egyptian wardrobe, so that's why, like, I'm wondering, like, they knew like that Moses was a Hebrew, and of course, like we see earlier that Moses, let's see, uh, uh, yeah, and he spied an Egyptian, smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. So this tells me that Moses knew that he was Hebrew, but I don't know if these two men knew that he was a Hebrew. Because like probably like they probably were like, oh, like look at him, he lives in Pharaoh's palace, like
No,
he's not one of
okay,
us or something like that.
no, I totally get what you're saying. I guess now that you say that, I said it a little confusing. So, no, I totally agree with you. I'm not saying necessarily that the guy knew that Moses was a Hebrew, but, my thinking is so you would kind of have to say the brethren, the person that's getting beaten or smited, right? He either thinks that Moses is helping him for X reason, or he's attacking this other Egyptian for some reason. But in the circumstance, we know currently that the Egyptian is smiting the Hebrew, right? So, I to me, it seems crazy that maybe who knows what they went through, but it seems kind of crazy to me that all of a sudden he's being, like he's getting beaten to death, and then all of a sudden another Egyptian comes up and just straight up murders that other Egyptian and hides the body.
Hey, is that your third party? The guy that they were beating, but he didn't die?
That's my point. I think he is, but I think like almost kind of like this, like because we knew this type of situation they were growing in, maybe like Light was saying, Oscar was saying, he didn't know, but what the benefit of that would be is if he could say, hey, this prince, this judge, he murdered an Egyptian and hid his body, here's his body, they would definitely get money for that. And definitely if Pharaoh was involved in that, because we were known. Oh, when Pharaoh heard of this, like that information. Definitely, if Pharaoh knows that he's Hebrew, like that's his reason for doing that. But kind of back up to what I was saying before with the smiting and the brethren. When it and it says, and when he 13 this is Exodus 2:13, and when he went out the second day, behold, two men of the Hebrews strove together, and he said to them that did the wrong, wherefore smiteth thou thy fellow? So so two Hebrew men, right? As the second day, I'm guessing after the murder happened, two Hebrew men who were together, and he said to him that did the wrong, like he said to Moses, why did you kill that person, right?
It doesn't seem, yeah, that's what he says, but it's like, why would they? Oh, because they wanted, and didn't they say, and don't do that to us? Yet he was defending a Hebrew. So it's just kind of a little.
Do we all agree that he looked Egyptian?
Yes, I think so.
I think so too.
Yeah, obviously he looked at Egyptian. Like if he grew up, like that would kind of be the point. Like, and the mom is the Pharaoh of the daughters, so there's no way.
And the Hebrews say, like, why did you hit your neighbor, the Egyptian? So it kind of sounds like they didn't know that he was Hebrew.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
Oh,
And so they're
saying,
turning on him, for that money or for that benefit. And like, they definitely got money if they were going to a Pharaoh, going and saying, hey, this prince, this judge, murdered another person. And the Hebrews coming up to him are like, oh, like, are you gonna then kill us, like just like you killed the Egyptian? And then that's when he was like, because he didn't, right? He didn't. And I wonder what their thoughts are, because he didn't kill them. He just is like, fled. He left. It doesn't say he said anything. It says, and Moses feared and said, surely this thing is known. Like, he's like, gosh, I know what this means. And so, boom, he got out of there.
and these two men, they make the claim, right? Like, who made you a prince and a judge over us? Because probably because of the righteous judgment that Moses did, right? He, like, in a way, saved an innocent person who was probably getting beaten for no reason, and it was like some type of judgment that he was bringing against this other wicked person. But that's why they ask him, like, who made you a prince and a judge over us? Like we don't know you, right? Like, you are an Egyptian or something.
Right.
But
Right.
this phrase reminds me of the story of the rebellion of Korah, when they were like pretty much like telling Moses, like, that they wanted to be leaders, but it's sort of like a picture into the future, right? Like, it's painting the future for Moses, that he was gonna be a prince and a judge over Israel too. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, and you can even see this, right? Like, okay, now this is kind of a controversial topic. Do y'all think that Moses murdered the Egyptian?
Oh,
I think so.
yeah, that's murder. I
I recognize this as one of Vader's leading questions, so I can't wait to see what you have to say on that.
in a sense, he was defending, but I don't know. Maybe it isn't murder. I don't know.
It
Okay,
is.
now
He
you got me
knew
pondering
that
it.
he was doing wrong. He looked to see if somebody
Uh-huh.
was watching,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
decided, oh, I can't get in trouble for this. I'm going to commit this act.
Yep. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, you're right on that. But also, like, with Torah, like, there is righteous judgment, and we know what happens when people disobey, right? So it's like, it's not considered murder, but he didn't knew the Torah. Like, probably, like, the Torah was written inside him. He didn't knew, but like the Torah wasn't fully given to him in a written form. So
I don't think that there's a way to justify it,
Right.
because even if they were going by the Torah, then there's a certain way to deal with that. If someone's being abused, it's not like out of anger you just murder someone on the spot.
Right. Well, there's
yeah,
also even
You bring it to a committee.
Egyptian law for him to flee like that because he murdered him he knew he was in trouble. So no matter what,
and
he knew it was wrong.
and we
Apparently, a high priest doesn't have to take it before a committee, though, because that one high priest stabbed those two that were committing adultery. Wasn't that a high priest or something of the like? He put he stabbed both of them at the same time with a spear. You know what I'm talking about?
that is true. That is true.
No,
And
because
also,
the reason why I bring that up is because, like, I'll say this. I don't think that I wouldn't necessarily think that it was murder, because, okay, now I do understand, because there is quite a good against that, because one, we see that it says, let's go back up there. I'm gonna pull this up on screen. Second. Okay, here we go. And then and it says, and it came to pass, when Moses was grown, he went out unto his brethren and looked at their burdens, and he spied an Egyptian smiting one of his brethren. And he looked this way and he looked that way, and he saw there was no man. He slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. And so yes, he hid in the sand, like, he didn't want the body to be found. Okay? And yes, he looked this way and that way, right? and there was no man. Now, you could put intent in this. I agree with that. But I'll also say, like, from a logical, like, thought it out. Like, if you were about to go fight someone, right? You don't know people around that area, and right, like, you're going out there and seeing these things happen, and but anyways, you don't. So if he attacks it, like, if he sees a person this way and see this person that way, it may not be like kind of like a stealing thing where he's making sure no one's around so he's not stealing, right? Is more like there was no other man gonna stop him from saving his. Does that make sense?
Fear said that the difference between killing and murdering is that murder is premeditated. So when he's looking to make sure that no one's around, he's premeditating what he's going to do, and then he hides it because he knows that what he's done is wrong. He doesn't want to get caught. He doesn't want to get in trouble.
But so that's okay. So
That's true.
okay, and I'm not denying that, but I need to get past the fact that he saw someone killing one of his brethren, and he killed that man. So I'll put that in any situation, like any person right now, right? They see, like, I guarantee you, like, if you walked out the door and your brother was out there fighting with, like, authority, and the authority, like, you knew the authority was going to kill him, and you killed that person, like, I don't know.
I know
man.
what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
I wouldn't judge that person as in doing something evil. Now,
it's like coming to someone's aid.
yeah, no, exactly. Now, him looking left and looking right, I did say in the beginning, you could totally, morally say that is him, like you said, meditation. He's, doing that, I'm about to murder this person.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, if this was you and your brother,
if I walked out the door, I would be looking left and looking. Like, if I see someone fighting my brother, I'm going to be looking around to see if there's any other threats. If it's just one person or multiple people.
You, my love, are not going to murder the person hurting your brother. You're going to take corrective action, sure. But you're not going to spend the rest of your life in prison.
Well, I know it's a little different situation.
In most states, you can kill someone that's about to kill somebody else. That's why, like, when they're robbing a store, if they have someone at gunpoint, in almost every state legally able to have a gun, you can shoot the person that's robbing the store. You're not going to go to prison for it.
I'm not sure that there's enough proof to say absolutely. You could say that the Egyptian was going to murder the Hebrew, but it doesn't say that. It says he was beating him, which I think is something between Egyptians and Hebrew that was probably common at that time.
Yeah, Moses just saw compassion at that time, and he couldn't stand it. But in the other store scenario, is you can't shoot that person in the back.
So,
if he was shot in the back, that would have been murder, because he was fleeing because he was robbing the store. If you shot him because he was coming after you, you would be, that's self-defense. But if you shot him in the back, that'd be murder.
And here's like another thing is, like, we don't have any details on how he slew him, right? So it says, like, if you're saying the smiting is beatings, which we can totally do, which is Genesis 2:11. Let me pull that up. If he's beating it, like, okay, if Moses comes up, like, let's say the man is beating him, and Moses comes up and stabs him one time, right? That's a lot different if he has, like, let's say, a sword, than if, let's say, he doesn't have a sword and he just sits there and just beats his face in until he's dead, right? Like, those are two different types of acts, and we don't really have any more detail of how this event happened. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or what was leading to it, right? Like the lady brought up like a really good point. Like maybe that was like something common, but like maybe Moses was like seeing that a lot, and like in his mind he like didn't want to like allow it anymore, so he took action, and we see the consequences, right? We see that two Hebrew men, like we need two witnesses, right, in order to make a case. So they go to Pharaoh and they tell Pharaoh, "Hey, Moses did this," and we see what happens next. He gets kicked out, and it's like how long has this been happening, right? Because like there's a huge gap between verse 10 and verse 11. We don't know how long has that's like the smiting on the Hebrews been, and maybe that was the final point for Moses to be like, okay, that's enough, because he tells us that in verse 11, the Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. So Moses knew at this point. Moses knew that they were his people, but like maybe he didn't. I don't know. I don't want to speculate.
Someone,
Yeah.
someone in the chat said that. Let's see, who was it? Odd and interesting. This person said, "Oh, well, maybe Moses's anger was righteous, but it was still murder." And I have to agree. I stand on the murder side, just because I don't think that the text would have included the facts that he did look. And then when he thought, I can get away with this, I'm going to do this thing. I think that those details are in there to show us that it
Right.
was murder.
Well, so
I reserve the right to be wrong.
no, totally. Yeah, we all do. And definitely me. But so because here's the thing. Like, let's say this. Let's say because we don't get the detail, but I'm gonna paint one story and then the other. And I know that's kind of speculation, but there's a point to it. So, like, one, Moses goes up to this man, right, and says, "Hey, knock that off, stop hurting that man." And he goes, "I don't care, he's a stupid Hebrew." And he, let's say Moses says, "No, stop," and pushes him away. And then that man is like, "Okay, well, after I kill you, I'm going to kill him." And then he attacks Moses. Okay, so it doesn't say that, and I'm not gonna say that is true. I'm not, guys. This is just an example. Now, the other side of that, right, is he, sees this man being beaten, and he, looks this way, and he sneaks up on him, and as the man's getting beaten, all at the opportune mind, he jumps him from behind, and he kills him, however manner he does, right? So there's one side, there's the other. We don't get that information, and all I'm saying is I don't know if when it says, "And he looked this way and looked that way and he saw there was no man," to me that doesn't necessarily mean like I'm trying to, like, it could literally ask, he's like making sure that there's no one else that's going to stop him from killing, right? So if that's the case, right? If that's the case, then he's doing that because if he, let's just say, just as an example, let's say he looked left and he looked right, like he had many times before, as light picked up. Like if they were being told to kill all the male children of the things, of course that was horrible. We knew that as he grew up, it was horrible. And even as he came of age, he was grown, he looked and saw their burdens. So I don't think this is the first time that he saw a beating. I think this is the first time he saw a beating and he didn't see a person there that could stop him from helping out the beating. So it was like morally, if he didn't help that man, he would have not been following the spirit of the law. Though I may agree, as others kind of said, that he didn't follow the letter of the law. That's why I wanted to give both sides.
Okay, we got both sides, but when you really read that 12, I think your wife is right. He looked, okay, and why? He's probably seen Hebrews being beaten all the time, sure. But this time he had, he blew, you know?
It could have
And
totally, I agree. It could have totally
and he
been
looked
an
both
emotional.
ways. It looked, it's very specific, and he looked both ways and slew him. So it's kind of like anyway, I guess we can move on from 12.
Yeah, I just think it's an interesting moral topic, but I think I agree. I think the letter of law, he didn't follow it, but I also think he followed the letter of the law. I think all the times, like, I feel like this was the time he felt like he should do something because he looked one way and looked other and didn't see no man, right? But like all the other times when he saw the beatings, like, again, it's not there. Like, it seemingly seems that he would have seen other beatings before, but this time there was no man. So to me, it seems like this is him choosing, okay, now I'm comfortable with doing it. Because at least we know, like, the father protects him, right? Like, he gets out of Egypt, he goes and, just to kind of go back through it, he goes to land of Midian. He meets a man. He gets along with that man. He does these things. I don't want to skip over this too much. There's more there, where he draws enough water for not only for everyone but for the flocks. We see that happening with previous patriarchs in the scriptures. And that's a kind of a sign of priesthood, and then he gets a daughter from it, right? And then but anyways, so all of that, he's blessed. Look at how much he's blessed after that, right? So Light was kind of saying before that his kind of view is that Moses hadn't really received the Torah yet. Like, maybe it was written on his hearts, but we're gonna kind of answer that question in I think a couple, maybe next stream, next episode, because we and I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit just to answer that question. Do you think when they're asking, and we'll get to this, when they're asking originally, hey, let us go out into the wilderness and make ourselves an altar and do our things that we're supposed to do to our God, and the Pharaoh stops them from doing that. So that behavior that they do is I would say at the very least refined, because they're still doing the feasts on appointed days. They're still doing the different sacrifices, the sin sacrificings, the Thanksgiving offerings. We know this because we saw, as we just talked about, Abraham was doing these exact same things. So the Hebrews already were doing these things. The reason why I use the word refined is because all of it was there. The only thing that was set down is that it was actually established, through Moses and then the Exodus, and after the 40 years, that they actually became a nation themselves, right? So they actually became a nation where they could build a temple in the spot that they were commanded to build that temple, so on and so forth.
Well, I know that when Moses said, "Let my people go, so we can worship and do the way we want to do," that's ahead. I'm going ahead, but you said they had a facsimile of it. They said, "We can't do. You leave the animals here." Well, we can't do that. And then he goes back and back and back and back. And he says, and the Egyptian people hated him so much that they weren't allowed to do any of those type of things. He says they'll kill us. We're not allowed. So that's why they had to leave. So I don't know how much sacrificing and how much they were following the law. Because
I'm not saying that they were following it. They obviously were oppressed to do so. But I'm saying they knew what they should be doing.
Yeah.
They knew they needed to take their animals and go out. They knew they needed to go out at certain times.
So, okay, yeah. Okay. I will agree. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, they knew, but I don't think Moses knew, because we see that being 3 months old, he gets picked up by Pharaoh's daughter, and yes, how old was he when he was returned to Pharaoh's daughter after being nurtured? But he was still a child. So I don't really think Moses really knew about his traditions. But I do agree with what you guys are saying about them knowing that that they needed to do certain things, and about the Torah being passed down orally. I do agree with that, but I don't think Moses knew, because and I don't think even Moses, even if he wanted to practice the feast days, he could have done practice them in Pharaoh's house, right? I don't think, because the Egyptians, they didn't like the Hebrews, so
Right. Now, how many years? 400 years were they under?
what? Yes, one more thing. Before
Yeah,
before we move on into chapter 3, I'm sorry. I know I talk a lot.
no, you don't.
Okay.
No, you're good, bro.
Okay. I know we're going back into the same topic, but I just wanted to bring another occasion where this happened, and it was with the defiling of Dinah. We see that Levi, and we see that Moses is from the tribe of Levi, and also Simeon. They go. They didn't like what happened to Dinah, right? And they felt the need to go out and like deliver righteous judgment um, to that town. So we see some type of murder, and of course, if you read the testament of the 12 patriarchs, which I do believe they are inspired. You can get the whole story there and why it happened. But we see this pattern repeating, right? Levi goes out and defends his sister for what happened to her, and he delivers righteous judgment. Moses does the same thing. He delivers one of his brothers, Hebrew brothers, for what's happening to him, delivering righteous judgment. And we see later on in Exodus, with the scene of the golden calf, that the only tribe that is that was standing its ground was Levi, and what they were told to do, right? They were told to pretty much slay those who were who committed the sin of the golden calf. One more thing, so it is very interesting that in chapter 1 of Exodus, when Joseph dies, this new pharaoh enters into the scene, and things start to change, right? Things start to go like downward. And at the very end of chapter 2, we see that the king, it says, and it came to pass in process of time that the king of Egypt died. So Pharaoh dies. And the children of Israel sided by reason of the bondage, and they cried, and their cry came out unto God by reason of their bondage. So we see some type of era, like dominion. I don't know what to call it, like a time frame, because it was like a time frame of good when Joseph was in power, and we see a time frame of bad when this Pharaoh enters into the scene, and of course it gets way more wicked. But we see that when this other Pharaoh dies, like the king of Egypt, Israel is getting delivered. So it's, I don't know, just I'm just throwing out what I'm seeing, and I guess thank you for letting me talk. Sorry.
No, that was awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So let's see. I wanna pull something up real quick. To kind of go along with what you were saying, and here we go.
I think they had lost a lot of their Hebrew after 400 years. They've lost a lot of that, and then when I don't know how, their ways after 400 some odd years and not being able to sacrifice or do anything.
Well, and we also know, like, I totally agree with you. I think they knew at least some of the basic stuff, right? They knew certain things, and I think obviously for the father to hear their cries,
yeah,
because of their bondage, right? And I think it's important that it pulls that out, right? The reason of their bondage, but remembering the covenant, right? He looked out and had him respect, and
right.
And we're not going to be able to, I think, get into 3 tonight because we got around 15 minutes. But I do want to continue this conversation because it's really good. We'll go through the housekeeping just right at the end, right before we do our goodbyes, to kind of continue the conversation. But so where he's sending up and God heard their groaning and remembered the covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God had respect unto them. So this right here makes it sound to me like that their heart is in the right place, right? Because look, like all this time before, we're getting into here, but the midwives were obviously in a good relationship with the father where they feared him and didn't do as the Pharaoh asked. 1. 2, even though all this burden was put onto them and they had to create all these cities and stuff, they still grew and multiplied, right? And so they were still blessed into that, and we know what happens when you do that. And and up in 7 it says, "And the children of Israel were fruitful, increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceedingly mightily, and the land was filled with them." So I think all of these people who started going through the bondage, and we even see that with the women, were righteous people. And they truly, I don't know how much they knew, I won't debate that, but I think they knew enough from Jacob, right? Because that would have been the line of descendantry that it happened, right? And look, where is this man-child coming from? It's coming from the priesthood, the line of priesthood, the line of Levi. A man of the house of Levi took a wife, a daughter of Levi, and she had a son. That's Moses. He was the next priest, the next high priest. Okay? So that passing on, right? Like, is obviously beautifully done, but I'm saying these people knew what they were doing, and they were being attacked. They were trying to go do, but I will also agree that they were obviously doing bad as well, right? Which, can't we all say that? But they were doing bad as well, because we see them coming out of Egypt and their grumblings in the wilderness. They're even though they're out, them going right back. So we obviously know that they're and that's all of us, right? Like, we all are on that verge of wanting to make a pagan altar to worship our own god, right? And and what I mean by that, I don't mean to offend anyone, but I mean is, like, even in Christianity, like, you know, there's a lot of denominations, Catholicism, Mormonism, Jehovah's Witness, etc. They all have their own vision of what God is and what the heaven is, and etc. Right? So in classification, they have set up an altar, something that doesn't exist, something that was created by man, and put that in front of what was created by the Father. So
they were grumbling and everything because that's all they knew, and it seemed like more comfort. And if you're trying to equate it to us now, we want our comforts and not our things taken from us also. You know, let's go back to this slavery rather than this one.
yeah, no, exactly. And we kind of went through that right in the last 2 years. Like, that's what people like the people who are now woke, you know, saying we don't need to put these things around our faces any longer, after, you know, calling the cops on people that didn't just a year ago, you know, like those type of people. Now that it's in, like, now that it doesn't do anything for them to say anything, because it's already going away anyways. But what my point is that it's so bothersome. But what's interesting is the point you brought up real quick, and we're kind of jumping ahead again, is like when they're coming out, right, the way that they feel about it is, like you said, they're like, well, being slaves was way better than, like, not having a house, you know, like, having to move every day and stay in the wilderness, you know. And even when they got, you know, these amazing things, the water from the rock, you know, the quail, the manna from heaven, you know, that or, you know, before that, when they see the Red Sea parted, after seeing all the plagues, and, you know, and you know, the final, or the, you know, the pinnacle of that part being the Passover and the consequences of that, and being let out, and then the Red Sea splitting, like, they saw all that, and then, like, as soon as they could, they made you know, like, their own sacred cow. So
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting. So you know that their heart's not right, but it is also interesting, you see here that the Father is giving them favor over and over.
Yeah, he did. There was a lot killed. There was a certain, I think they were a certain sect of people or whatever, or certain ones that just didn't want to, that made that calf. But then they deceived Aaron into making it. It's kind of strange. But anyway, we're way ahead of.
Yeah, we'll get in that. And there's so many great conversations in Exodus. That's why I want to get here. And I, again, it's kind of saved some of the other stuff, because here soon I want to do like a dedicated dream episode. I don't know.
Just real quick on the dream subject. Somebody said refresh before you read the comments, because they put one in last minute about a dream.
Oh, okay, sweet. Yeah, I definitely will.
Thanks.
Oh, thank you for the update. Alrighty. I'm just gonna do a quick time check, see what we're at. Yeah, we got about 7 minutes left. So, all right, guys. Well, as you can see, there's so much more to cover in Exodus. Of course, we're only on chapter 2, but I feel like we could have way more conversations than the ones that we went over just tonight. But we'll definitely be back for another episode. That'll be 19. More than likely, that will be the next thing. But we do have other things kind of, working on getting some other special guests coming. So we'll see about that. I'll let y'all know soon about the next episode. Sorry it was a little late this week, but it did get out, I think, on Thursday. So, anyways, yeah, so let's go ahead and do some of the housekeeping before we say our goodbyes. Just gonna pull that up for you. So, like every single time we do a stream, when you put a comment on there, we're gonna read it out at the end of the stream. So we definitely appreciate that. It helps the thing grow. We're at 422. That's awesome. It keeps growing. Keep sharing it. We definitely appreciate that. Also, check out the description for the Discord. That's where we do these live streams for them. So if you're comfortable, if you got things to share, even if it's a one-off, like, hey, I really want to talk about this subject, get on Discord, talk to me about it, and I'd love to do, a special episode with you. Also, those that just want to join in conversations about whatever topic, we have that Discord there. We also get voice chats. Though I did miss last Tuesday, I was unfortunately busy. This next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Sorry, that would be 8 p.m. I believe, right, Chris? It's 8 p.m. Eastern. We do a Bible study on Jubilee. So, but anyways, go ahead.
7 p.m. Central Standard Time, I believe.
Yeah, I see.
I believe it's 7 p.m.
Mine's
Eastern
6 p.m. Mine's 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So isn't that 8 Eastern? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But anyways,
I said Central. 7 Central. Pretty sure.
Sweet, thanks. But yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and look at the.
Wait, let me just clarify for those listening. That was confusing. Mountain Time, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Tuesday evenings, Jubilee study. Discord channel.
Book of Jubilees.
In the chat. Download it.
Nice, yeah. And if you need any help with the app, I'm in there. Other people are in there to help you out and get you set up. It's pretty easy. So a little confusing, but definitely with help, it's easy. So, anyways, so yeah, let's read the comments from the last video. We're gonna do the ones over on Enclosed Cosmology first, and then we're gonna jump over and do the ones that are on Take of the World. Quick shout out to Take on the World. They're so awesome. For those that don't know, they also let us use their platform to stream our broadcast. So they open up their family to our puzzle pieces. So we definitely appreciate them. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to them. They're super duper awesome. But yeah, I'm gonna pull up the comments, and here we go. Just grab them. Where are they? Sorry guys, I'm having a little browser difficulty. There they go. Okay. And switch this over. Thank you for your patience, everyone. So stream down. So we got lovely legend Wendy Moore. She said, someone said I need to do a refresh on this. So make sure I do that. I don't know if I did. I think I pulled this up in the beginning. So let's go all the way back down to the bottom. There we go. Okay, so we got Infinity Split 456 said dreams are so important, but they can be not of God. I think also not of God, totally. But I'm seeing more and more how fruitful it is too during the waking hours. Engage with Yeshua in the Spirit. It's kind of like dreaming, but you're also focusing and clear. Hope that makes sense. Great topic. Yeah, again, I want to make dreams are super important in my life. I don't know how much you would agree with this, babe, but I feel like it was one of the dreams that I've had in my life was very pivotal in us being together and now having 4 beautiful children. So you can comment on that if you want, or you can save it for that episode.
I agree.
So Wendy Moore, she said, recent visions I saw a huge fist in the sky with 7 syringes in its fist between each knuckle, pointing sides down. Underneath them on the ground was a huge pile of bones. I was looking up at the sky like I was, this is number 2. I was looking up at the sky like I was underground or underwater. There was a Paleo Hebrew in the sky. Second time I've seen this. There was this huge dark black arm with red cracks and it stretched out over the land. A rock hit the arm and exploded. Then I saw a table with a $100 bill wrapped around the front leg of the table. Then it ended with me seeing the ground and a new sprout of green was coming out of the ground. The sprout had 3 leaves, not 2. As far as the moon perspective, watch this video. I'll have to check this out later, but interesting. And these are like you're saying these are open-eyed visions. I've personally never had open-eye visions, so I think those are really interesting to
That
talk about.
first one sounds like a jab vision.
Yeah, totally. I wonder the symbology between the ways they're pointing and all that jazz and the number, but anyways, Pepperminty also said, I used to have a reoccurring dream nightmare growing up of tiny robot alien spiders that would get under human skin. After they'd enter a human, that human would start hunting other humans. I'd always wake up just as one crawling on my arm. Not sure if I got it in my skin, but seriously glad I don't have those dreams anymore. Yeah, absolutely. I hate reoccurring dreams because it's like, and if you can explain them, then when it's happening, it's like it's happening, and it's like it's almost like you don't know, but you know that you don't know, so it's weird. I don't know if you went through that kind of same thing, but anyways, Marcia said, I had so much fun this Jubilee show. It was a blast. Yes, absolutely. Our girl REL, as Mandy says, great show too. Always a pleasure to hear REL. She's so full of energy and fun. Yeah, she's super awesome. She has her own channel. She does a couple of things. She also is a part of the South Kakalaki crew, which is That Flat Fellow, Just Flat Jack, and a handful of Dr. Law, a lot of great legends out there that do quite a bit of cool stuff in activism. They recently, I believe this morning, did a meet up at a flea market. They rent out a couple booths there and just hand out information, talk to people, straight up activism. It's really cool. Y'all should check that out. Most of that streams on REL's channel or That Flat Fellows, so check them out. They're awesome. And then our legend JJ Hemp Creek Bear said, Shalom all, great show. Small dream testimony. Once in 2014, when I was in my lowest spot and just waking up to the truth, my best buddy, who had passed away in a house fire 7 years before, visited me in my dream, and it was real as real life. He told me it was okay and that he was okay and to turn my life around. So I cried like a baby and it turned my life around. Praise Yah. And I made a recording of exactly what he said, but I haven't revisited it in 5 years. Much love, everyone. Okay, so I won't get into much of it, but I have literally had dreams where, and I'm sure everyone else has that does remember their dreams, where the emotion is like it's like palatable, like you can taste it, you can feel it. It's so intense when you're sad and like you're crying, like. And I don't know if you're saying you cried in your dream, but that's at least what it made me think about. Where I've had these deep emotions in dreams, and it's like it's different than normal. But anyways, to finish it up, thanks for that testimony. I love hearing dreams, and again, I'm so excited to do a dream episode itself. But then my lovely wife said, I truly love Ariel's energy. She brought such an interesting topic to the conversation. I would love to hear on the regular. Exactly. Check her out. And then I know I'm kind of spinning my wheels still, so I'm going to jump over real quick and go ahead and get the last two comments down. Moonglow, like, I'm gonna literally have to make you something that says thank you, or just like make a shirt that says thank you, dash Moonglow, because you can consistently thank us for this, and we thank you for that, and it definitely helps. Even something so small and simple as leaving a comment that took you, what is that? 5, 6, 7, 8 letters with a space. So appreciate you. And then my wife said, I had encountered sleep paralysis numerous amount of times, and it's terrifying. It made me ask a lot of questions and delve into some things to seek answers, and have not been attacked in years now, and I'm very thankful for those reasons. Sometimes we have to experience something to know what is real, and if that exists, and I think y'all allow such things so that we can be a beacon for those who suffer in the same way. He allows such things so that we will seek for him. Absolutely. Just remember that if I did something in your dream, that wasn't me doing it. Don't be mad at me. Still love me when I wake up. So
Apologize.
Apologize right now.
awesome. I wanted to get into some news, but it looks like we didn't need to. There's a lot of. I just wanted. Okay, I'll test that. Just really quick. Robots made of cells burn the skin between creature and machine. What is this one? Satellites find big climate threats. Ultra emitters of methane. Let's see here. There's this other one. Scientists baffled after finding two bizarre blobs deep inside Earth. Implications. Dude, deep inside, you mean no more than 7 miles, right? Because that's as far as we can drill down. So there's no way we can see down that far. Like, I don't care what ground penetrating radar you have, nothing's going down that far to tell you. But anyways, last one. Space trash could kill satellites, space stations, and astronauts. Share those with you real quick. Just more nonsense. But anyways, guys, let's go ahead and say our goodbyes, everyone. Wrap this up. I do appreciate you all being here. Those comments, those likes, those shares, they really do help us out, slapping that bell and catching us next week. But anyways, I'll let you throw it up. I'll throw it over to my lovely wife. Babe, you want to say goodbye to everyone?
Yes, thanks for having me, my love, on the first time I've been on the show. And thank you for everybody that showed up tonight. I love seeing you guys in the live chat, and I love hearing your comments on the next stream. Love that we read those off. We have been brainstorming some giveaway ideas for when we reach 500 and 1,000 subscribers, so don't forget to click like, subscribe, and share, as sharing is caring. Shalom, all.
Yes, shalom indeed. All right, Oscar136 Light, gonna say goodbye to the folks.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for coming to the discussion about Moses. And yeah, please leave a comment and a like, and don't forget to share this information, because we know that the physical famine is coming, but also a famine for the word of Jah. So it is good to know the book more, so we can preach it to others when Bibles disappear, if they do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, brother. And jump over to Daryl Lee. I'm not sure if Daryl Lee's here. He's been muted this whole time. I'm not sure if he's even able to speak. So if you do get here, you do hear this, go ahead and say your goodbyes. If not, we'll just jump over to Chris. Thanks for jumping in, Chris. You're welcome anytime, brother. I know sometimes time's an issue. But yeah, go ahead and say your goodbyes to everyone.
Yeah, I just want to say, celebrated New Year's yesterday. Happy New Year. If you're celebrating this night, tomorrow, Happy New Year. Peace and blessings.
Absolutely. Appreciate that, brother. And dear Marcia?
This Shabbat, no, it's not Shabbat anymore. It's Shalom. So, and just it's always good to be on. And thank you for having me. And it's fun. It's fun to talk about. So that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. All right, and appreciate you always being here, lovely lady. I definitely appreciate it, and you know, she shares quite a bit of great content in the Discord. So again, check that out. That's in every link. That's in every description of every video. That's what we're really trying to grow: is more puzzle pieces, more people to add to the conversation. You know, more people to join the table and have these live streams where we chat over the internet. So if you're interested in that, check that out. But for me, thank you all so much for being here. For comments of next video, we're going to read out. You know, we're getting into Moses now. We kind of skipped ahead because we're also getting really close to Passover. So those that celebrate Passover, or those interested in celebrating Passover, what I'd like to see is a comment from you, specifically about Passover, how you celebrate it, what time you celebrate it, and see if we can get some interesting conversation going about like such an important time, something that's you know, commanded for all you know, all generations. So super excited to see what y'all have to say about that as we make our way to that Passover, not only in scripture but also in you know, in real life as well. So thank you all for being here once again, and have a great night. I'm gonna seal this off with our music from our dear brothers Nick and Frankie, and y'all have a great one. Shalom.